I'm currently a principal engineer, but I've been in the industry for a long time. Started off as a software developer and before many roles since that time. Um, and Actually, right in the beginning, I was interested in AI all those years ago, but and I thought I was going to invent the first thinking computer.
Oh,
Also realized that wasn't going to be easy. So it's quite amazing now to see what's happening in the AI field for me. And I get at the Deriv, I get the opportunity to play, push the boundaries, let's say, of some of the tools that are out there and some of the things we're doing internally. So it's highly encouraged at Deriv. So it's really good.
yeah, that sounds pretty exciting. So maybe you can give me a quick idea of what Derive does and how your team fits into that.
Yeah. So we're an online broker, one of the largest in the world, um, serving around 3 million clients globally. Um, we're we're very much in the concentrating on user experience and democratizing trading. So it's very important to us that our platform is easy to use and intuitive, and we're we're very forward thinking as a company, and we've adopted AI sort of wholeheartedly across the board, not just in engineering, but we're encouraged. Everybody's encouraged to use AI tooling to to speed up to help their work. Um, I myself am in the engineering department, and we create the software that the platform resides on. And obviously, I'm involved specifically with the QA team right now, and pushing the tool sets, the automation tool set adoption, and if we're moving. We've moved quite heavily to low code AI tooling in the last 6 months. It's been quite rapid, and for a big company, it's quite amazing to see how rapid we can move. So it's really quite exciting.
From your point of view, what are the biggest hurdles for modern engineering or QA teams?
Uh, in adoption of AI or just generally, just yeah, I mean, obviously we've suffered a lot in engineering from being able to deliver what the customer wants. As a discipline, um, I think the software development and as an engineering discipline, I think software development's lagged often behind other engineering disciplines. If you think about sort of civil engineering, the projects that tend to go wrong, are less frequent in other disciplines, whereas you often feel that you're not delivering in software exactly what the customer wants. And I think this is the reason why agile was adopted. This is why we were so excited about being able to iterate more quickly. AI obviously being a huge help in those matters. So yeah, it's I kind of do feel that this is uh really the time when we really are going to be able to deliver some good experiences for customers.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. I saw that happening as well in my former career. So when you adapt that to QA, so what does it mean here?
Yeah, well, so QA is, I mean, to get something out the door, it needs to be correct. So not just not just what the customer has asked for, but functionally stable, resilient, secure. And it's impossible to get something outdoor quickly without some form of automation. It's not just in QA, it's in DevOps, it's in the release management side of things. It's everywhere really. So um, yeah, automation is key.
Mhm.
And I think what's been, the pyramid is slightly changing somewhat. So I quite, I've been pushing for a while now. I've been seeing such a lot of good adoption or improvements in test automation tools at the UI level, which has traditionally been the thin wedge of the pyramid. And I think it's really exciting to see how that is improving because it's it's naturally, it's always felt to me it's the way to go, to try and automate the user experience, top down through the UI. But traditionally, it's been such a challenge because the UI changes so often.
Mhm.
So that's why recently I started looking at tools that allow us to sort of survive UI changes. To whether it's locator changes or more radical changes. So on-based testing feels like a nice way to go in terms of maintenance and being able to flex a little bit more with our test to UI.
Mhm.
This is what initially attracted me to tools like Octomind.
Yeah, that sounds good. So the goal is to have a more flexible solution which can quicker adapt to the engineering changes or to changes provided by
Yeah,
engineers.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and it's new and it's maturing, and there's a couple of projects that we have on the go where we're comparing and contrasting traditional record and replay um, tools and development. We're shying away from high code developments. We've moved entirely away from those sorts of tool sets.
Mhm.
So we are, yeah, we really are pinning our hopes on the new types of tooling to get us in that agile space that we want to be in.
When you start looking into Octomind, um, were there were there any parts that really impressed you or felt different from other tools you tried?
Well, the self-discovery side of things has attracted me initially. I must confess that. Um, yeah, that was what really caught my eye. And I remember just getting quite addicted to clicking on the generate more button, um, looking at shopping cart sites and just seeing it, eventually buying the product and buying a handbag, I think it was, on this test site and delivering it to itself. Um, so yeah, that was quite cool. And then I sort of realized, that was kind of a nice feature, which would always have some limitations. And I've seen the value of mixing that with our own prompts coming for our own test case bank and being more structured and creating nice structured tests, small tests with dependencies, and the features that you've introduced in Octomind that support that have kind of guided me as well down that route. So we certainly um, learned along the way. The initial attraction was the self-discovery,
Mhm.
and then the hook was to see some of the changes that came within the product that actually made sense to us in terms of structuring. So, for instance, today when I was training somebody, they had this huge long prompt trying to do everything, and I said, "Look, hey, that's cool, but you're going to have to slow down. It's not going to understand all of that. So break things into small chunks, create dependencies, tried and trusted, and that's the way to go." So there's a bit of prompt engineering learnings, with all of this. And again, I think the blogs that you write, the documentation supports all of that nicely.
That's good to hear. Is there anything that's gotten noticeably easier or more efficient since you started using Octomind? So how did that change what your team is doing or how they are working?
So we're um, we've taken on a few projects that already have some record and replay tests, and we're comparing and contrasting some of the call flows. And what we're finding is that when things do change subtly with the UI, then an auto fix is usually the remedy. So the maintenance side of things does seem to be paying off. And the things like we have situations where we've got some tests that are almost single line prompts. You might have a personal details page and you kind of just have to say, fill in all the details. And then if a developer adds a couple more fields, and so be it, you just regenerate the tests and you've got, you've got a fully working test suite again. So I would say the maintenance, I mean, this is the promise of prompts based testing, is the maintenance should be lower. The initial effort can be a bit of a pain. Again, talking to some of the people that I've introduced to the product, you kind of see the newbies and you think, yes, you're going to have to fit sometimes. But once you get some steps, they're like gold dust, you keep them. And then the tests work from there, which brings me to one of the key points, is that once you've got your steps, the code that underpins the tests is really robust. And I found that's one of the main benefits of the product, over and above other LLM-based tools that I found. It's the repeatability, it's the stability of the test runs that are really important, which is what we get with Octomind. So, yeah, we're looking at other tools that can do sort of validation and discovery, like Devon. UX, it can pick up UX issues even, but we're not relying on those sorts of tools for generating code for us. The developers are using those sorts of tools for generating code, and we're more interested. We're from a prompt-based development point of view. It's fine to generate tests using prompts, but the code that underpins it needs to be robust, and that actually I've seen that in the time I've been working with Octomind. I've seen that improve. Manifold. It's really good now.
And are there any features or improvements you're excited about or hoping for to see show up in Octomind in the near future?
Yeah, I think the MCP side of things is really quite nice and exciting. That's an extra. That's a third option that we're seeing, third way of integrating with the platform in terms of generating more precise or valuable prompts. So we have actually an internal project which is looking at leveraging some of our test case bank, some of our existing documentation, which would hopefully provide that sort of domain knowledge, which I think is sorely needed with something like this. Obviously, when you're testing a shopping cart site, it's quite an ubiquitous sort of domain, but and perhaps flight trading is to some degree as well. But obviously, we do things in a certain way. So feeding in that knowledge into some kind of engine or structure, and then using Octomind as a back end for generating the tests based on more precise prompts is what we're looking at the moment. So, yeah, the MCP options come along just the right time for us. But having perhaps more better integration in terms of the front end of platform. Some of the, what's nice about the platform, Octomind platform, is it does cater for the manual tester, I would say, allowing the adoption of MCP through some sort of text box, so you don't have to bother with setup. It would be quite nice. I mean, this is the thing, we only discussed this a few weeks ago. You are moving very rapidly with some of these things. I think prompt templates was mentioned a few weeks ago as well, and that's come through already, it seems, to some degree. So, yeah, cool. I see you guys at the forefront of this, because you're obviously living and breathing what's out there, what works. I can imagine when it comes to the new things coming out, you've got to adopt them very carefully, because some things could work better and other things worse. We're mostly using Octomind for what we're calling our V2 products, which are the products that are using the AI low code. So that's iterating really fast, and we needed a tool that could iterate fast with it to test it, that could iterate fast. So, this is what, they're heavily using AI, and we in QA need to heavily use AI as well.
That's a very interesting development. That's very true. The faster the iteration cycles of the team get, the harder it is, of course, to catch up, right? So you need something which helps you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're looking to get everybody across the company thinking about quality. So I see a day when the product designers will be the testers, or product owners, I should say. And this is why I'm talking to you more about taking, integration with the test case bank or test management tools. I mean, we've got a lot of pragmatism as well. We know what's achievable now, but we know also what can be. So we feel that we need to know what good looks like now, so we know what good looks like in the future as well. So, that's what I keep saying to people internally. Set your expectations at here, and then, let's not be unrealistic about what can be achieved with AI at the moment. I mean, this is cross board, isn't it? It's that hype. Are we living up to the hype of it? I think we are, to a degree, if you're realistic about it, if you're realistic about what you really understanding about what AI is, the technology behind it. It does feel different to other hype. Because I've been around for a while, you've sort of seen lots of new technologies, lots of promise of being able to deliver software more quickly.
And now we're getting there finally.
It does feel different. Yeah.
Potential. It's true. Yeah. As you mentioned, the prompting and how you have to structure your prompt. So what we will start to work on in one of the next iterations is to have active help to formulate your prompts, so that there's a prompt improvement system going on, so that you type in something, maybe even short versions of the prompt, and that the system helps to come up with something which is more likely to succeed.
Yeah.
So that's something which is also coming.
Yeah. And this is why I think it's the direction. This is what I feel is where you place yourself as a product, is that you're helping, where we are saying we're, as an online trading company, we're trying to democratize trading, make it simple for people. Well, I think you're trying to do the same with Octomind, make it simple. You're trying to drag manual testers along. For the first time ever, you get so much. I've had so much. What's the word? Find it so difficult sometimes to get manual testers involved in automation. Whereas, the promise of this tool is that, the entry level is easier. It's an easier route to automation.
And I think it will benefit even very experienced people, because there's so much stuff you have to take care of. So if you code it or so, you might be able to code it, but it then takes up a lot of time to really fix the good stuff. And
let's not neglect developers as well. Of course, developers can use, they don't need a simple platform, but actually they still need a platform that works. And I was talking to a developer today, actually, who, when I was thinking about that large prompt, he was the one I was thinking of. But it's still good. It's good that he wants to build in these tests into his pipeline. So he's looking at the MCP option, and he's thinking about things like that. So definitely not just manual testers, the devs, and I say the product owners as well.
Yeah. And it will be as hard for the product owners as for the manual testers to get into that. So the tool needs to be kind of that simple when it comes to grading test cases.
Yeah. So anything you can do to simplify the prompting. And then in the future, the prompting will get more accurate, I'm sure, or more. So exciting stuff.